Today is Monday, January 19th, 2026, and I need you to hear this like an emergency broadcast, not a cute market update. Silver just hit a record high around $94 an ounce, and what matters is not the number on your screen. What matters is the split. The ticker says one thing, but the real world is saying something else, and that gap is the silver lie. Let me say it plainly. The spot price is not the price of physical silver in your hand. It is the price of the paper game. It is a reference number set in a marketplace built for leverage, not for delivery. And when the world gets weird, when trust gets shaken, the paper game does what paper always does. It shows you a price, while the real thing quietly becomes hard to get. So why is this happening right now? Because we just got the Greenland shock. Over the last couple of days, President Trump escalated his Greenland push into a tariff threat aimed at 8 European allies, with a 10% tariff starting February 1st, and a signal that it could jump to 25% on June 1st if a deal is not reached. Whatever you think politically, the market heard one word: fracture. A fracture inside the Western alliance. A crack inside the idea that rules and partnerships are stable. And the moment people smell instability, they do the same ancient thing. They move from promises to things. That is why silver is acting like a geopolitical hedge today. Not because everyone suddenly loves shiny metal, but because trust is becoming expensive. And in late 2025, the US government itself basically told you silver is strategic by adding it to the official critical minerals list. That means silver is not just jewelry or an investment meme. It is an input, a choke point, a national security material. Now here's the part nobody on cable news wants to explain, because it sounds like a conspiracy until you understand how the plumbing works. Spot is mostly discovered in futures markets. Futures are contracts. Contracts are promises. And promises can be created in huge volume with a small amount of cash because of leverage. That is not a moral statement. That is literally the design. The COMEX futures market exists to hedge and to speculate, and most contracts never end in delivery. They get rolled or closed. So the system can print a price all day long, even if very few people are actually exchanging physical bars. That is why, in normal times, you can look at spot, shrug, and buy a coin with a normal premium. But in stress, the chain breaks in the exact place you would expect, between paper and metal. Here's what I mean by the lie. You see 94. You try to buy an American Silver Eagle. And you quickly learn you are not buying 94 silver. You are buying 94 plus fear, plus scarcity, plus minting bottlenecks, plus dealer risk, plus shipping, plus I want it now. Even today, major US dealers are listing 2026 Silver Eagles well above spot, commonly in the 100+ range, and depending on quantity and product type, you can see triple-digit all-in prices that feel like $115 and up. That spread is not an error. That spread is the signal. And I know what some people say at this point. They go, premiums are always there, that's normal. Yes, premiums exist, but look at the size and the speed. When spot moves and physical moves harder, faster, and higher, that is the market voting with its feet. It is saying paper price is a headline, physical price is the invoice. Now, why does the premium explode? 3 reasons. 1, the physical market is smaller and slower. It is not a video game. It is inventory and trucks and vaults and mint capacity. When demand spikes, it cannot instantly create more eagles. The US Mint cannot just snap its fingers and flood the world with coin. 2, product preference. In panics, people do not want random generic rounds. They want trusted, liquid products. Eagles, Maples, Philharmonics, big bars from known refiners. That concentrates demand and makes the best products go scarce first. 3, counterparty risk. In a panic, nobody wants a promise. They want a receipt that ends in metal. Now let's talk about the other part of the lie, the rules. In the last couple of weeks, the CME hiked maintenance margins on COMEX 5,000-ounce silver contracts to $32,500. That is not a small tweak. That is a giant jump in the cost of holding a position. And you need to understand what margins do. Margins are the cover charge to play the futures game. If they raise the cover charge, it forces smaller, leveraged players to sell. And when forced selling hits at the same time, fear hits the world, you can get 2 markets at once. The paper market getting shoved around by forced liquidation, and the physical market getting squeezed by real demand. People call this a kill switch for a reason, not because there is a villain in a cape, but because the effect is predictable. It cleans out the weak hands. And who is usually most exposed to weak hands? The retail trader on leverage, not the biggest institutions with balance sheets and lines of credit. So when you see a margin hike into a panic, ask yourself a simple question. Who does this help right now? Now let's talk inventory, because this is where it stops being a vibe and starts being math. COMEX has categories. Eligible metal is metal that meets specs and is stored in approved vaults, but it is not registered for delivery. Registered metal is the deliverable pile, the stuff that is actually tagged and available to settle contracts. And when people start demanding delivery, That registered pile is what matters. Over the last week, analysts tracking CME depository stats have reported massive withdrawals on the order of tens of millions of ounces. You may have seen the widely circulated figure of 33.45 million ounces, leaving registered inventory in roughly a week around a quarter of the registered pile. Whether your exact number is 28 million, 33 million, or somewhere in that neighborhood, the direction is the same. The vault is being asked to prove it is real. Here is the core idea. A futures market can only stay calm as long as most players accept cash settlement and roll their contracts forever. The moment a meaningful chunk of players say, "No, I want bars," the paper-to-metal ratio becomes a problem, because you cannot settle a bar with a promise if the other side does not accept the promise. And that is why the spot price is the lie in a decoupling. Spot is the price of the most liquid paper market. Physical is the price of the least flexible real-world market. When those two diverge, it is not the coin dealer being greedy. It is the market admitting the truth. The thing is worth what it costs to obtain it. Now let's pull this back to the Greenland shock, because this is the spark that lit gasoline today. You are watching a NATO moment. When the U.S. threatens tariffs against allied countries tied to a Greenland demand, that is not just a trade story. It is a confidence story. It tells every government, every company, every fund manager, alliances can be weaponized, rules can be rewritten, and when that mental switch flips, capital runs to the few things that do not have a CEO, do not have a board, do not have a central bank printing press, and do not have a counterparty. Gold does this. And now silver is doing it too, with a twist. Silver is also industrial. So you get a double pressure. Investors want it as a hedge, and industry needs it as a feedstock. Silver is in electronics, solar, medical tech, and yes, defense supply chains. Modern war and modern computing are metal intensive, and when silver is treated as a critical mineral, it becomes part of a national checklist, not just a chart. That is why you keep hearing the phrase paper versus reality, because reality is supply chains, tariffs, export controls, and trust. Reality is a company that cannot ship a product without certain materials. Reality is a government that cannot build systems without certain inputs. And reality is a buyer who wants to hold something that cannot be diluted by a keystroke. So what is the only way out if the spot price is fake? Here's the sane answer, and I want to be careful here. This is not financial advice. It is a framework. Step 1. Stop thinking spot is your checkout price. Spot is a reference. Your real price is spot plus premium minus your ability to negotiate. So when you shop, you compare premiums, not just spot. Sometimes the smartest move is not the most famous coin, it is the product with the best liquidity to premium ratio. In a decoupling, that can mean boring bars, boring rounds, or a mix. Step 2. Avoid leverage if your goal is safety. Leverage turns you into a hostage of margin changes. If you are buying silver because you want an escape hatch from a system you do not trust, then tying yourself to a margin clerk is the opposite of the mission. Physical ownership, held outright, is the only thing that cannot be liquidated by someone else's rule change. Step 3. Understand timing risk. In a panic, premiums can overshoot. Later, even if spot stays high, premiums can compress when supply catches up, so do not confuse the premium spike with a guaranteed forever price. Think of premiums like a stress gauge. It tells you how desperate the market is for immediate metal. That can change. The thesis you want is bigger, the decoupling itself, and the strategic nature of the asset. Step 4. Think about custody like an adult. If you buy physical, you have to decide where it lives. Home storage is sovereignty, but it has risk. Third-party vaulting is convenience, but it reintroduces counterparty. Safe deposit boxes have access risk. There is no perfect option, only trade-offs. The key is to match the storage choice to the reason you bought it. If your reason is no counterparty, then do not put it into a structure that depends on someone else opening a door for you. Step 5. Watch the signals, not the headlines. Watch margins. Watch delivery chatter. Watch inventory reports. Watch the premium gap in real time. When spot and physical drift apart, that is the market telling you where stress is hiding. And today, the stress is screaming. Now, let me address the pushback, because some people will say, this is fear-mongering. Listen, fear is not the point. Clarity is. A spot price can be real inside the paper market and still be misleading for a physical buyer. Both things can be true. And the only reason this feels shocking is because most people were trained to treat the spot price like it was the same as a retail checkout price. It is not. It never was. We are just seeing it in bright daylight now. Here is the bottom line. The silver lie is the idea that the number on the screen is the whole story. It is not. The whole story is trust, delivery, and strategic demand. And the Greenland shock just reminded everyone how fast the world can change and how quickly a safe system can turn into a negotiation. So if you are watching this and thinking, okay, what do I do today? You do two things. First, you zoom out and stop letting the ticker hypnotize you. Second, you verify reality. Call it, price it, test it. Check what a real ounce costs delivered from a real dealer in a product people will actually buy from you later. That number, not the spot price, is what the market is really paying. If you want, drop a comment with what premiums you are seeing right now in your area and what product you are trying to buy. And if this video helped you understand why the spot price can be true and still be a lie for you, hit subscribe, because the next phase of this story is not about $94. It is about what happens when enough people stop accepting promises and start demanding metal. Before we go deeper, let me break one misconception that is everywhere. When you hear spot, most people picture a big vault and a clerk going, "Here is today's price for a bar." That is not what spot is. Spot is basically a benchmark that comes out of the most liquid markets, and for silver, that means futures. A futures contract on COMEX is not 1 ounce. The main contract is 5,000 ounces. So when you say silver is $94, you are really saying a 5,000 ounce promise to deliver silver at a future date is trading at an implied price of $94 per ounce. And right away, you should see the gap between that and the reality of you buying one coin. In a normal, boring world, that benchmark works fine. Because refiners can refine, mints can mint, wholesalers can ship, and dealers can hedge their inventory with futures. The paper market and the physical market stay glued together because arbitrage keeps them glued. If coins get too expensive relative to spot, big players mint more and sell, and the premium comes down. If coins get too cheap, they get bought up, and the premium rises. That is the mechanism. But what happens when the glue is melting? What happens when the system is hit by a geopolitical shock and at the same time inventories are being drained and margin rules are being tightened? Arbitrage depends on one thing: confidence that you can source the underlying metal and deliver it on schedule. When confidence cracks, arbitrage slows. It does not vanish, it just stops being instant. And in markets, not instant is basically a lifetime. Here's a simple analogy. Imagine the news says gasoline is $3.50 a gallon, but every station in your town is either out or it has a line around the block, and the only pump that works is selling it for $5.50. Which number is real? The $3.50 headline might be based on a wholesale benchmark, and it might be correct in a spreadsheet, but the price that matters to you is the price at the pump. That is what is happening with silver. Spot is the wholesale headline. Physical is the pump. And now we have to talk about the unspoken structure under the paper system. It is fractional by nature, not in the sense that it is illegal, but in the sense that the same ounce can support many claims. Futures can be opened and closed without metal moving. ETFs can represent metal held by custodians, often through complex chains of sub-custodians and bars that are allocated or unallocated depending on the product. London operates a huge unallocated system where many participants hold claims, not specific bars. Again, this is not a moral judgment. It is how liquidity is created, but you already know the risk of fractional systems. They work until everybody shows up on the same day and says, "I want mine." That is why bank runs exist. And a decoupling in silver is basically the metal version of a bank run. Not everyone is taking delivery, but enough people are testing the system that the price of immediate physical starts to separate from the price of paper promises. Now, when people hear COMEX, they think it is some distant casino. But it is not distant if you own any kind of paper silver product, or if you assume the spot price is the truth. Because COMEX is where the benchmark is formed, and the benchmark shapes everything from dealer hedges to industrial contracts to how your neighbor talks about silver at a barbecue. And this is where the margin story becomes explosive. When CME raises the maintenance margin, it is basically saying, we think volatility is higher, so we want more collateral. That sounds responsible. But here is the ugly side effect. It can force liquidations at the worst possible time. If you are long on leverage and they raise the margin, you either add cash or you sell. So a margin hike can manufacture selling pressure even when the underlying demand for physical is rising. That is how you get a paper dip inside a physical squeeze. And if you have never seen it before, it will confuse you. You will think, wait, silver is crashing, but my dealer is still out of stock and still charging a huge premium. Exactly, two different games. Now let's touch the trapped banks idea because I want to frame it carefully. Do bullion banks take short positions in futures? Yes, as part of market making and hedging. Does that automatically mean they are evil? No. But in a decoupling, the structure can still trap them. Because if a large portion of the market wants delivery at the same time, the paper shorts need metal, not just a good opinion. And sourcing metal in a tight market is not something you solve with a press release. So when you see rule changes, like margin hikes during a squeeze, people interpret it as the house protecting itself. Whether you agree with that interpretation or not, the real point is the same. The rules can change overnight. Your leverage is not yours, it is rented. That is why I keep saying, if your mission is an escape hatch, do not build your escape hatch out of rented leverage. Now back to today's catalyst, because this is not happening in a vacuum. The Greenland tariff threat is not just about trade. It is about the idea that strategic geography and strategic resources are back on the table. Greenland sits on critical minerals, shipping lanes, and military positioning. And when politics turns into raw leverage, markets respond like animals. They run to what feels solid. That is why we saw gold and silver spike at the same time global stocks got punched. It is a fear trade, yes, but it is also a logic trade. It is the trade of people who do not want to be the last person holding a promise. And because silver is now officially on a critical minerals list, it gets pulled into that same worldview. People hear critical and they think, oh, that means the government cares. Yes. And it also means the government may prioritize supply for industry and defense before it prioritizes you buying coins for your safe. That is not a conspiracy. That is what governments do in tight supply chains. They ration, they prioritize, they secure. So the silver lie is not one single lie. It is a stack of misunderstandings that the system benefits from. Lie number 1, spot equals physical. Lie number 2, paper is the same as metal. Lie number 3, rules are stable. Lie number 4, if you want delivery, you can always get it at the benchmark price. Those lies survive in calm periods. They die in chaos. Now I want to give you a simple way to spot a decoupling with your own eyes. No spreadsheets needed. Do this. Open your screen with spot, then open 3 dealer pages. Pick the same product across all 3. Look at the all-in price for small quantity because that is the retail stress point. Then look at shipping time and stock status. In calm markets, you will see modest premium, plenty of stock, normal shipping. In stress, you will see premium jumps, stock goes in and out, shipping dates stretch, and sometimes order limits appear. Those are not vibes, those are symptoms. And if you really want to go one level deeper, watch the spread between different products. When generics stay available, but sovereign coins vanish, it is a trust premium. When even generics vanish, it is a supply premium. And when both vanish and margins rise and inventory is drained, that is when you get the kind of decoupling people talk about for years. So what could happen next from here? Let me give you 3 scenarios, because the worst thing you can do is assume there is only one path. Scenario 1, the paper market wins the short-term battle. Margins keep rising, leveraged longs get liquidated, price dumps on the screen, and everyone says, see, it was a bubble. But physical stays tight, premiums stay elevated, and the metal quietly keeps moving from weak hands to strong hands. In that scenario, the chart lies the loudest. Scenario 2, the physical market forces a reprice, delivery demand stays hot, inventories keep draining, and the paper market is forced to follow because arbitrage cannot keep up. In that scenario, the chart catches up to the invoice, and that is how you get triple-digit spot without a magical story, just math. Scenario 3, politicians patch the crack temporarily. Maybe there is a negotiated cooling of the Greenland tariff threat or some diplomatic compromise, and the fear trade relaxes. Silver could pull back, premiums could cool, but the structural change remains. Once trust is broken, it does not fully reset. The market now knows the alliance can be pressured, and that silver is strategic, and that inventories can be drained fast. That knowledge does not go back in the box. Now let me give you a physical-only playbook that is boring, practical, and built for reality. First, decide your goal in one sentence. Is it, I want to hedge against currency debasement? Is it, I want insurance against systemic risk? Is it, I want upside if silver reprices? Pick one, because the best product and the best behavior depends on the goal. Second, pick a mix. If you want maximum liquidity, sovereign coins help. If you want maximum ounces per dollar, bars and rounds help. A mix keeps you from getting trapped by premiums on one side or resale friction on the other. Third, buy in tranches. In a market like this, trying to nail the perfect entry is how people freeze. A tranche plan beats a hero plan. Buy a little now, a little later, and keep some dry powder. That way you participate without betting your entire mood on the next candle. Fourth, verify authenticity. In stress markets, counterfeits increase. Buy from reputable dealers. Learn basic tests. Weight, dimensions, magnet slide, ping test, and for larger stacks, consider a verifier. Do not be the person who saves the system and then gets robbed by a fake bar. Fifth, understand taxes and reporting where you live. I am not giving legal advice. I am saying be aware, because surprises create forced selling, and forced selling is how you get shaken out. And finally, treat physical like insurance. Insurance is not supposed to feel thrilling every day. It is supposed to be there when the world goes sideways. And today the world is sideways. One last thing, because I know some of you are thinking, what if I cannot find physical? That is the loudest signal of all. If you cannot find it, or you can only find it with a massive premium and long delays, that is the market telling you the benchmark is not the full story. And that is why this video is called The Silver Lie. If you take anything from this, take this sentence. In a decoupling, the real price is the price of immediate delivery. Everything else is commentary. And just so nobody twists my words, let me be precise. I am not saying the spot price is a scam in the cartoon sense. I am saying it is a price for a different product. It is the price of liquidity and leverage. It is the price of a contract that can be closed with cash, rolled forward, or forced out with a margin change. If you are a trader, you can live inside that world and it can be perfectly rational. But if you are a citizen trying to protect purchasing power and you are using spot as if it were your checkout price, then yes, for you, it is fake. It is a map pretending to be the territory. So here's a quick 3-question test you can run anytime, especially in weeks like this. 1, can I actually buy the metal at spot? Not could I in theory, but right now, delivered. 2, if I wanted to sell tomorrow, would the product I am buying be easy to move? Or am I paying a premium I will never get back? 3, do I control the asset or does someone else control it on my behalf? Those 3 questions will cut through 90% of the noise. And now, zoom out one more time. On January 19th, 2026, the market is not just repricing silver. It is repricing trust. It is repricing alliances. It is repricing the idea that paper claims are the same as physical reality. That is why you are seeing new highs, wild volatility, margin hikes, inventory headlines, and premium shock all at once. This is what a stress test looks like when it hits the real world. If you want to follow the story like a pro, ignore the drama and track the plumbing. Track CME margin notices, track depository withdrawals, track shipping delays, track retail premiums, because those are the footprints of the real market. And when those footprints diverge from the spot ticker, that is the moment the lie is exposed. Paper can be printed, paper can be paused, paper can be cash settled. Physical just is. And in 2026, with the world turning into tariffs and blocks and resource leverage again, that difference is the whole game. So if you are still asking, what is the real price of silver? I will give you the answer that hurts. The real price is whatever it costs to get an ounce into your possession with no IOU attached. Today, that number is higher than the screen, and that difference is not a glitch. It is the market telling you the same truth it tells in every panic. Promises are cheap, metal is not. If this is a decoupling, the next move is simple. Stop watching, start verifying. ASAP.